Alrighty, let's talk about a sermon. I guess a sermon. Really, it's more of a conversation from a pastor called Beckett Cook. Really, could we even call him a pastor? I don't know. I don't remember what qualifies someone to be a pastor anymore. It's been so long since I've actually been a Christian. Then again, I was also an evangelical Christian, so to me, a pastor was just somebody who grabbed the Bible and spoke from a podium. So I guess if that podium's digital, either way. Semantics. Point is, we're going to be talking about, apparently, gay pride in the spiritual realm. Before we get into that, though, let's go ahead and get into the fan art section. So we have a piece here from Dusk. They said they're redoing a species and made a new version of the Cypru Suris. So, now I'm just reminded of the SCP. There were dragons here. You know, the box that had the paper dragons that came out, and as imagination around the paper box dwindled, an accidental genocide happened. Yeah. Sorry. That's, if you're an SCP fan, I guess you remember that one now. Oops. As always, thank you all for your fan art submissions, and let's go ahead and get right into the topic at hand. And yes, that was a very sad SCP. It makes me cry. Alright, literally it's called Gay Pride and the Spiritual Realm. Now this is a longer video, so we will, in fact, have to take it on in multiple parts. Hopefully everybody's okay with that. Let us go.
Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Okay.
Today I want to talk about, it's still Gay Pride Month, which is kind of funny because a friend of mine actually pointed this out to me the other day, that it's kind of odd that Gay Pride is a month long. I mean, Christmas is one day, Easter's one day,
What?
New Year's is one day, you know.
It's kind of weird that Black History Month is a thing when Christmas is one day. It's kind of weird that Gay Pride is a month when Christmas is No, it's not! It's not weird! Look, Christmas is one day as a holiday. Gay Pride Month is not a fucking holiday. These are category errors, Beckett. Continue.
Thanksgiving, it's just bizarre. Even Martin Luther King Jr. Day is one day.
What? You mean to tell me that the holiday with day in its name only lasts for a day? Oh, holy shit. Please, give me more insight. Please, I need it.
And so it's very bizarre that Gay Pride is an entire month.
No, it's not.
I think I've given you a little history on Gay Pride. But before I get into that, I want to talk about the supernatural realm.
Guys, we're talking about gay people, so now let's talk about the supernatural.
The unseen realm. And I'll get into why. But first, I want to read Paul. I just want to remind you of Paul's discussion about the unseen realm, the supernatural,
Okay.
the demonic in Ephesians chapter 6. Paul says in verse 12, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood."
No, we instead wrestle against chat. Felicia Angel, thank you for redeeming your points for an ada. You fucking monster.
"But against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." So that's pretty complex, and it's pretty powerful.
That's not complex. It's literally just saying we don't wrestle against random ass people. We wrestle against systemic powers. That is all it. There's nothing complex about that. How is this statement complex? Please.
So that's pretty complex, and it's pretty powerful. That we are not. It's not just the scene world that we're dealing with, like the politics and gay pride and the flags everywhere. I live in, obviously I'm in Los Angeles, and this is where I live, and there's literally gay pride flags on every single building.
Based.
In the entire city. It's like
Taste the rainbow, motherfucker.
It's so extreme that it's bizarre, and that's why I want to tie it into the supernatural realm, the unseen realm, which, by the way, is a book that I'm reading right now. It's called The Unseen Realm, and it's by Dr. Michael Heiser, and he's a Semitic and Hebrew scholar, ancient Hebrew and...
Okay, so this seems like a very, very... what's the best way to put it? A very meandering way to say, I don't like the gays, but let me talk about this book so that it doesn't sound like I don't like the gays. We're gonna speed him up a little bit, because, this is very meandering.
Semitic scholar, and he's brilliant, and I highly recommend this book. It's called The Unseen Realm. Let me get you the full title. Oh gosh. Rediscovering the Supernatural Worldview of the Bible. And this book, The Unseen Realm, is an academic book, so it's pretty long. It's like 400.
He is actually speaking at a normal speed now. This is amazing.
132 pages. But he did a second book, more of a popular book, where he distilled down all of these ideas into a smaller book called Supernatural: What the Bible Teaches About the Unseen World and Why It Matters. And that book is only 170 pages around that. So I recommend either book to you. If you want to do an academic book, read The Unseen Realm. If you want to do more of a popular book, read Supernatural by Dr. Michael Heiser. I'll put the links down below of both books.
So he plugged somebody else, so we're just going to have to go ahead and plug myself here. Okay, so I just got to say right now, if you have a gay lover and you would like to do supernatural things with them, consider going to ddlgplayground.com and using coupon code Suris. That will get you something, anything you can pick, so that you can do stuff with your partner. And it can be fun stuff with your partner. And if you use my coupon code, I get a kickback from that, and you also get 10% off. You should do it. Definitely do it. You'll have some supernatural fun time. Plug yourself.
But I'm reading The Unseen Realm, and it is mind-blowing. It's so good. And basically, Michael Heiser, in the first chapter of the book, talks about, he makes this claim that after you read this book, you will never read the Bible in the same way. And it's true, because he connects the dots of the Old Testament and the New Testament in such an amazing way that it really opens up the world of antiquity and the world of Scripture and the context within which the Old Testament was written, and kind of the Mesopotamia context, and where just all of that region, the ancient Near East, which is what we would call basically the Middle East today. And so he's an expert in the ancient Near East and antiquity, and so this book is amazing. And it really, I'm kind of in the middle of it right now. I'm probably like a third of the way through, or maybe halfway, but it really sparked this kind of thing in me of how gay pride and what's going on in culture today, the whole LGBTQ movement, is so tied to the supernatural. It's
what you're telling me, Beckett, is that gay people have unlimited cosmic powers and very itty-bitty tiny spaces. Right?
It's so tied to the unseen realm that we're not even aware of. And so we're going to get into that today. And I first want to remind you that, I've posted a couple of articles that I wrote about gay pride and my experience with gay pride parades, gay pride marches, or whatever they're called. And
they're called.
I just want to do a quick summary of my experience.
Allow me to give you my lived experiences with this gay pride, whatever it's called. Tell me in one sentence you can discredit yourself without actually saying I've discredited myself. Jesus Christ.
Experience with gay pride. I started going to gay pride parades when I was 16 years old in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And when I first went, I just felt this kind of like, wow, these are my people. I felt fully accepted because I was just discovering really that I was basically gay, or at least attracted to the same sex. But in the 80s, this was all in the 80s. And so in the 80s, homosexual behavior was starting to move from a behavior to an identity. That's when, it started in the 70s.
So it was always an identity, but we did not view it as one because we were bigots. Get it right.
As I've talked about before, the Stonewall Inn, which is a gay bar in the West Village in New York, which I've been to several times, in 1969, the Stonewall Inn, it was basically a men's gay bar in New York City. Yeah. And it was raided by police in the early hours on, I forgot the date, June 28th, 1969. And that sparked all these riots kind of in the following days. And that's why in the following year of June 1970 is when the gay pride kind of marches started. And at first they were very political. Now they're kind of more, they're political and sort of entertainment at the same time. But in the beginning they were all very much political. Okay. And that's why, just so you know, that's why June is Gay Pride Month, because that's when the Stonewall Inn in New York was, that's when the riot started in New York. So
yeah, Gay Pride started as the Stonewall riots. Yeah, that's correct so far. So I'm waiting for this to be tied into the supernatural, and I guess by extension as to why gay bad.
So when I was 16, I went to Gay Pride, and I just remember feeling this like elation and just kind of camaraderie with people. And I was like, wow, like this is, and so I was living like this weird double life, because in high school, I was like popular and had lots of friends and like had girlfriends. I went steady with, I think at least three girls. I had serious girlfriends in high school.
I was living a double life. I was popular, but gay.
And but at the same time, I was like sneaking off to gay bars, and I was sneaking off to Gay Pride, and no one really knew. It was just kind of this dark secret I had. And so it's weird, because when I first started, and I talk about this in the articles I've written, but when I first started experimenting with sexuality, really, every time something happened, I would feel this shame. I would feel this guilt and the shame, and it was weird. It just would last several days, sometimes a week.
Yeah. Have you ever considered that's because you were living, and by this admission apparently still lived, in a society that told you should be ashamed for those things, and therefore when you did those things, which made you more true to yourself, you felt shame? Like, you have no idea how awkward and weird it was the first few times that I actually did anything in like a polyamorous capacity. The strange cacophony of emotions I had to deal with are still something that I can't fully process today, but they're a thing that I can at the very least explain. Yeah, when you do things that society does not deem to be normal, sometimes you feel a certain way. It's part of living in a society that says that you're not normal.
But the more and more I engaged in that sort of reality, the more I engaged in that sexuality, my heart just kept getting harder and harder. And like, it's kind of just Romans 1 all over again. It's like, again, Paul uses homosexual behavior as the illustration in Romans 1 of human beings suppressing the truth.
And he uses that because he is writing based on the writings in Leviticus, which, when actually exegeted, do not necessarily have to do with a man and a man having sex with one another as the explicit sin. But, divorced of context, that is what Paul had to write from, was based on those earlier writings in Leviticus. But, it's fine. It's fine. You think that you're suppressing the truth. So it's either the truth that you shouldn't have been gay, apparently, which is kind of counterintuitive. God would have made you gay. Like, from a Christian perspective, God would have still made you gay. But, second perspective, the truth is you don't actually have superpowers, and you just kind of let us on with the supernatural bit at the beginning of the video.
So, I was actively suppressing the truth, even though I wasn't fully aware of it. But at the time, I was aware that the stuff I was doing was shameful. It was weird. I knew something was off. I knew it was kind of...
No, you felt it was off, and you felt it was shameful. There's nothing shameful about being gay or doing gay things. Pegging is okay.
Wrong, sort of, but I just was like, but this is how I feel. So I don't know how to reconcile these two things. The fact that I know sort of the shame and the guilt, and I sort of know the truth about this, but I'm also going to pursue it anyway. So it was weird that but of course, as I said, the more and more I engaged in that stuff, the less and less guilt and shame happened after each time. And so,
yeah, amazing how living your best life eventually makes you feel less shame in doing so. Wow. What a concept.
by the time I was in my, early 20s, when I met my first boyfriend, all kind of vestiges, sort of, not all, there was still a tiny vestige, but most vestiges of that kind of, that understanding that something is off. Like even when I lived in LA in my early 20s and went to pride parades here, I kind of was like, something's weird about this. Like, this is off. Like there's too much decadence. There's too much celebration of decadence. And there's gay men that are super buff on these crazy floats, and they're wearing tiny little Speedo bathing suits and they're dancing on these floats. And I just remember just thinking, like, this is bizarre. Like, this is a bizarre world. And
yeah, so sometimes gay pride parades can get weird. That does not mean that gayness is weird.
And I kind of didn't want to be in it, but I knew I really had no alternative. I was like, well, this is kind of the way I feel, and this is the world I guess I'm in. And so,
no, you had an alternative. You could have just not gone to a pride parade. You could have just been like, hey, I'm not comfortable at pride parades, but I'm also gay, so, like, I'm perfectly comfortable with whatever I plan on doing with whatever partner I end up having, but, like, the actual public thing, the going out to the pride parades, that, not my deal. It's kind of like me. Like, I'm an adult, so legally I can drink. I don't like drinking, so I don't. I even go to bars and don't drink. I just go for the hot wings.
I embraced a lot of it, but I rejected some parts of it, like the weird naked dancing on floats. And the pride parades were just so, as I said, they were decadent, but they were also just so almost disturbing in a way. There were parts of the parades that were very, very disturbing. There were like demonic elements to it that even when I was living that life, I just was like, this is creepy. It was almost like a Halloween thing.
Demonic elements of men in Speedos. Look, I'm just going to say this right now. There's only one demonic element of men in Speedos. And if you don't know about it, well, I'm just going to go ahead and play you a little bit of it. Just look. If you're thinking about demonic men in Speedos, this is the only thing that should be playing for you. This right here. That. This is the only thing that should be playing in your head if you are thinking about gay men in Speedos. Just throwing that out there. Okay? Okay. Now, let's continue with the video.
And so, anyway, and I obviously lived that life as a gay man until 2009 when God rescued me out of that life and saved me, and it was such an amazing thing. I'm still just so excited that God rescued me out of that, because it is, as much as it's painted as, this like joyful celebration and the rainbows are everywhere, it's actually a really dark thing. It's really dark. And
what is dark about men dancing with Speedos? Like, okay, look, let me flip it around. I'm a heterosexual dude, okay? So I don't get anything from the men in Speedos. But I can understand the idea that people who I might be attracted to dancing around in less clothing than what I am usually used to could be an uncomfortable thing. That's a thing that would make me uncomfortable in public were it women or AFAB people at all, or NB. It doesn't matter. People who I would otherwise be attracted to doing that in public like that would make me uncomfortable. That doesn't mean that it's demonic, and it doesn't mean that I need God Senpai to rescue me from it.
So in the article, I say that gay pride promises much. It promises liberation instead of constraint, affirmation instead of condemnation, authenticity instead of hiding, acceptance instead of rejection, strength instead of weakness. But it's a make-believe world. It's not real. And
dude, no, those Speedos are real. There are real men pounding their schlongs in the air. They are real. They exist.
It's a make-believe world where one can glory in one's sin and without consequences.
Because there's not consequences to just being yourself. Like, literally, I'm sorry. Look, I know that you probably have some fetish that when you die, God's going to look at you and go, okay, now how many bad things did you do? Are you ready for a pounding? Saint Peter, put him in the straps. Like, I understand I understand that there's this awkward fetishization with God punishing you for all the bad things you did in life. But look, there's another perspective. I'm an atheist. Your world is the make-believe one to me. From my perspective, your world, the one where your God is going to punish people for whipping their dicks out in public or some shit, that's the make-believe world. That's the one that's from fantasy. I understand from your perspective, all of that is an affront to God, or it's a sin, it's offensive to him, and therefore it's bad. But I'm going to throw a couple of things at you. First of all, unless you want to view your God as the weakest form of snowflake, your God can handle it. He can handle men in Speedos. Believe me. God can see those men's penises, no matter what they're wearing, okay? Okay. Secondly, and this is the other thing I want you to consider, God, from a Christian perspective, made you who you are. Therefore, God made you gay. And there's nothing wrong with you being gay. Now, there are particular things that are associated with that are stereotyped with that you might not be comfortable with. And that's okay. You don't have to partake in those things. I'm polyamorous, and thanks to trauma, I'm not doing group shit anytime soon. But whenever I mention that I'm polyamorous to somebody, the first thing they think of is threesomes. It's foursomes. It's doing group shit with all kinds of partners and getting down, and that's not a thing that I can do now. I just can't. But the glorious thing is, I don't have to. Just like you don't have to go to a gay pride parade, if that's not your thing. It doesn't mean that you're demonic for being gay. It doesn't mean that you're an affront to God for being gay. There are plenty of gay Christians, and in fact, there are plenty of pastors who are gay, who can sit down and exegete the Bible to you and affirm to you why it's perfectly okay to be gay and still be a Christian.
Obviously, there were a lot of consequences in the 80s with AIDS, which
AIDS was not a consequence for being gay. You absolute fuck shit. Oh my god. No, there was a stigma. Like, literally, no. There was not a consequence for being gay. There was a stigma about getting tested because the AIDS virus was associated with gayness thanks to the failures of the Reagan administration. No. Getting AIDS is not a consequence of being gay. Straight people get AIDS all the fucking time. You numb testicle dick shit.
Affected a lot of my friends. And some of my friends have died from AIDS from that time. And
that is very unfortunate. Oh my god, I hate that this song comes up so much and it triggers copyright. Stop.
But the gospel, in contrast to the gay pride, delivers. The gospel delivers. It delivers freedom from shame instead of endless cycles of guilt.
It doesn't deliver freedom from shame. It, in fact, gives you the tools with which to be shameful. Like, okay, look, let me explain. You felt shame because the society around you that was affected largely by Christian Puritan values told you to feel shame. Therefore, you felt it. It is also why you were compelled to go to gay pride parades, because that was your sign of rebellion, your sign of acting out against that Puritanism. You have now cowardly walked yourself back into that Puritanism because it offers you comfort, because you don't have to face any of that anymore. It is a comfort place for you now. What you need to understand is that for many people, it is the exact opposite. 110%. The Bible shames people. From your perspective, the Bible delivers you from shame. From many other people's perspective, the Bible does the exact fucking opposite.
Fear and regret. And, of course, it offers life. It offers us life instead of death. So it's just such a stark contrast between gay pride and the gospel. The gay pride leads to death.
How does gay pride lead to death? How explain? You have to qualify that one. You have to qualify that one. If you cannot qualify that statement, then I don't know what to do. Gay pride leading to death. Please explain that one to me.
Gospel leads to life. I know that's a strong statement. I know it's probably shocking to some of you, but that's the truth.
It's not a shocking statement. It's a stupid statement.
It's true. And so I thought I was super sexually liberated for all those years, but I didn't realize I was in bondage. I was in chains. I was I was figuratively in chains.
The smirk on his face as he's imagining men in chains. Just look.
And it's just amazing how what links people will go to rationalize sin, and that's why.
Look, how many religions do you think there are, dude? How many religions do you think there are? It is not in all of those religions that being gay is considered a sin. Nobody has to rationalize being gay. It is literally, hey, you! Are you attracted to dudes? Are you a dude? You're gay. Hey! Are you a grill? Are you attracted to grills? You're gay. Hey, are you an NB? Suris.exe has stopped working.
That's partly why there's such a crazy push, especially this year. This year seems different from the past. Gay pride seems like it's been ratcheted up so much more. It seems so extreme this year. It's
because the further and further you slide yourself back into the closet, the more extreme the other side looks.
Bizarre. I mean, I've never seen like all the corporations who are putting flags on, pride flags on their logos and all that stuff.
It's because it's now officially a decade since gay marriage was legalized. It is now in vogue for corporations to support.
Really, it's bizarre. It's an upside down world. It's bizarro world.
It's not an upside down world. The upside down world is the one that is affected by Christian Puritanism. Continue.
And even as if I were still living as a gay man, I would just be kind of like, this is too much. Like, this is too extreme. Like, calm down, people.
Then just don't go to the Pride Parade.
Because back in the 80s...
Oh, right. No, it hasn't even been a decade. You're right. It hasn't been a decade. I was wrong. It's not been a decade. Wow. 2020 really was a long year, wasn't it? Jesus Christ.
Wasn't in the 90s, too. It wasn't as kind of frenetic and as extreme. So it's really gotten pretty nuts. And I just want to quote Paul because he says in 1 Corinthians 6, he says, and this is what happened to me when God saved me. He says, and such were some of you, but you were washed, you were sanctified, you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of our God.
Okay.
So the gospel is good news indeed. And so anyway.
Allow me to explain the gospel's good news to everybody in the chat who might not be familiar with it. The good news is that God made a lake of fire, and in that lake of fire you will burn for eternity, unless, of course, you look at this God and say, please don't spank me, Daddy, I love you. Oh, and there was a guy who got pegged by a bunch of Romans on a cross? Yeah, that was kind of weird. But the fact that he spilled his juices everywhere is the reason why we can tell Daddy not to spank us, and therefore we get to the pearly gates.
Right, I want to get into...
Ivana, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an... Ada. You fucking monster.
Dr. Michael Heiser's book. I mean, I should finish it before I talk about it, but I'm so excited about it. I have to talk a little bit about it. Maybe I'll do some more on it later. But so and I want to tie this into gay pride. So he says that one of his statements is that most Christians, if you ask them why is the world the way it is, why is it so crazy and destructive and all around us, it's so decadent. It's
because Christianity tells you that you're supposed to be separate from everything, and that mentality literally can breed 1,000 cults. The idea that you are supposed to be separate from the rest of the world, and therefore the rest of the world will always be seen as weird to you because your book is literally telling you to separate yourself from it. No matter how normal the world is, if you tell yourself to stay separate from it for long enough, it will look strange to you. It's called culture shock. It is a fairly understood psychological principle. Except for you, it's literal gospel.
It's decaying. Why is that? And most Christians would just answer with the answer, because of the fall of mankind in Genesis 3. But he says that's actually not the full answer. The full answer is that there are 3 rebellions in Genesis that we kind of overlook. And so the first rebellion is the fall in Genesis 3. And the second rebellion is in Genesis chapter 6, which I will read just the first part of it, the first 4 verses, if I can find it.
Well, while you're looking for it, Felicia Angel, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an owl. Owl.
I should just use my Bible, but I'm using these papers. So in Genesis chapter 6, he's talking about the increasing corruption on the earth. And it says, when man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God, now that's important to remember, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive.
Yeah, they began angel fucking.
And they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years.
And yet nobody lived for that long back then.
And in verse 4, he says, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them.
God, that is so fucking lewd. When the sons of God came in the daughters of man. All right. Wasn't aware we were going to talk about biblical cream pies today.
These were the mighty men who were of old and the men of renown, or the men of the name. So this little section of Genesis is kind of bizarre. It's like, who are the Nephilim? Who are the sons of God? Like, what's going on? Why are these sons of God going into these attractive women on the earth? Going into
these attractive women? Oh my God. Guys, on mine and Raz's anniversary, I had to go into her. That's the language here. Jesus.
And so Dr. Michael Heiser, he talks about this passage, and this is the second major kind of moment in the biblical history and in the narrative where the corruption starts to get ratcheted up. It becomes more, it increases. So Michael Heiser says that the sons of God, which some scholars think are human beings, I don't believe that anymore. I think the sons of God,
of course I had to, Feather. It's called being horny.
Are supernatural beings. They are cosmic intelligences who did things that that resulted in the proliferation and acceleration of our own human depravity.
So remember, literal angels, literal beings of divinity coming to Earth, literally coming to Earth, made the Earth more depraved. If the sons of God made the Earth more depraved by cream pieing it, maybe we should expect that God is a little depraved. Just maybe.
And destruction. And they hurtled us toward idolatry, these sons of God. And so, again, this is supernatural. This is what Paul is talking about in Ephesians 6, the supernatural realm. And so he says in Genesis 6, he says that it says that these supernatural beings, these cosmic intelligences, took wives, human beings. They took human being wives, and they basically impregnated them. And
that's what a cream pie does.
And the result was the Nephilim. So and the Nephilim are these kind of giants, these giant creatures. And
so, can you imagine? You're a lady, and you have been going steady with your human boyfriend for ages, and then a literal son of God comes down and just goes, penis, and then boom, pregnant. And now you've got to explain to your Earth lover that the inadequately sized gigantic child popping out of you is definitely his. No, honey, he looks just like you. Ignore the fact that he looks like an eldritch horror birthed out of the sides of H.R. Geiger. Nope. Definitely your child. Definitely.
And it sounds so kind of bizarre and sounds too supernatural, even though the Bible is a book about, there's a lot of supernatural events in the Bible, including a donkey speaking, including the serpent speaking in the garden, including the resurrection, the virgin birth, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not surprising that there's supernatural things happening, and there's this unseen realm, as the book is called. And so,
dude, there's nothing supernatural about sex. It is just sex. You put the piece in the other piece, and then, like, after about 3 seconds, if you're inadequate like me, you go boom, and then, well, babies. That's not supernatural. That's pretty normal.
So God pronounces judgment. He says, "My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years." Now, some Bible scholars think that that's God putting a limit on humans' lifespan. I don't think that's the case. I think that the 120 years is the time between this event and Noah and the flood, basically. So it's 120 years between the Nephilim and Noah.
Biblical scholars say this. I think differently, because reasons. Well, I'm pretty sure that he's going to have some interesting justifications as to why he disagrees with biblical scholars, but we are almost at 40 minutes on this video, so we are not going to be getting into that today. We're going to have to do a part 2, and then we'll get into the rest of that later. So if you want to hear more about multi-limbed angelic dinguses doing the boink, then I guess we'll be coming back to gay pride in the spiritual realm in another episode. There has so far not been a whole lot of conversation about gay pride outside of the fact that he just found it icky. And I know that my theory is that he's just going to go, aha, look, there was sexual depravity before God murdered everyone. Therefore, gay pride bad. And if that's the case, then I just don't care. But we will look at the rest of his video later. Till then, let me know what you thought in the comment section below, and we will get into a part 2 in another episode. As always, though, everyone, if you enjoyed the content, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Follow on Twitch if you haven't already. That's an incredibly useful thing to do. And, as always, everyone, insert in the video tagline here. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. If you want access to behind-the-scenes content for the channel, please consider checking out my Patreon. I do weekly vlogs over there, where I give real-life updates to what's going on behind the scenes on the channel, stuff that you don't really get over here, and even on Twitch. Patreon also helps the channel's stability a whole lot. Without Patreon, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. Especially with the kind of content that I do, neither YouTube nor Twitch are the most stable sources of income. If you are a $20 and up patron, then you will be featured on the ending slides as shown in the beginning of the end credits. If you want to catch the streams where all this content comes from, then consider heading over to Twitch and following. And if you want to continue watching over here on YouTube, maybe consider clicking one of the end screen videos. And once again, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me over on my channel. I wouldn't be able to do literally anything that I'm doing over here on YouTube without each and every one of you. So, thank you.